All right. I believe we are live. Let's see here.
Yes, we're live.
Awesome. Cool. Sweet. Well, thank you, LaChelle, for being here. And thank you, everybody who's watching. I'm really excited about the show today. This is the first of many Unicorn Connector live shows. And, the Unicorn Connector is something that has been around for a bit of time. A lot of people, specifically on LinkedIn, are rather familiar with it. And I'm excited to expand on what it is and talk about all the different things that we've got to show. My goal is to provide as much value to people as possible through this podcast. This one, of course, is a live streamed show, and then it'll be produced and shared on all the other major podcast platforms. And so the Unicorn Connector Show is where we're going to talk all about relationships, revenue, referrals, and give people tips and tricks and ideas and all sorts of different ways to be the absolute best connector you can be. So today we have the ever so amazing America's Supermom, LaChelle Adkins, who really kind of blew my mind when her and I met for the first time. Um, I had never met somebody that introduced me to so many people right after we met that, I thought my phone or LinkedIn or something was broken. Literally, it was the funniest thing to me because we had just, had our meeting, and I sit down for lunch and my phone's just going off. And I'm like, what in the world is happening with LinkedIn? And you know what? Nothing. It was LaChelle being the amazing unicorn connector and superhuman that she is, super connector. And and so I just thought that was amazing. So anyway, so this is LaChelle Adkins. Thank you so much for being here. LaChelle, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of an introduction?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for those kind words. And, I do get that response from a lot of people a lot of times. But I am all about connecting, as you can see. But I am known as America's Supermom. My husband and I have 15 children, and my platform is mental wellness. I'm all about sharing strategies and tips with women so that they can navigate through life's obstacles with a smile instead of stress. I believe that, if we want to have the ideal life of perfection, that it's an illusion. It's just not possible because there's always something that comes out of your control, be it a pandemic, or in my case, with 10 children still at home, somebody's forgot their lunch, or, they need something for a project. So, you have these chaotic moments, but if you have a set of tools and strategies, it helps you to navigate through those obstacles, just like having a spare tire if you get a flat tire in your car. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. I love that so much, LaChelle. And I know that you have so many different things going on. And we've had you on a few of our Unicorn Connection events, and everyone's always like,
Mhm.
holy cow, I can't even keep up. Like, how do you even do everything that you do? And it's funny because as we were, getting ready to meet up today, I saw a video that you put on YouTube, I think just yesterday, where you kind of talk about how you actually manage all the different things that you do.
Mhm.
Would you mind elaborating on that a little bit? Do you know what I'm
Yes,
talking about?
well, you know what? I have so much content out there, and to be honest, this is my third interview today, so just being transparent. But I think that the main issue that helps me to be successful is learning how to collaborate. So we were just laughing before we hit record here about not really being tech savvy. I'm all about just making things simple, showing up. And the reason why I'm able to do that is because I know what my gifts are and I know what I'm not gifted at. And so I try to strategically align myself with people who are gifted in areas that I'm not so that we all can shine. And so I think having that mindset and attitude is really the basis that has allowed me to be successful in juggling business, home life, and personal life. And I think it's just not taking yourself so seriously. I had mentioned earlier about perfection. And if we learn to just not be so hard on ourselves and have grace, then we lower our expectations on things and we just get started and we, take risk and try new things because we're not underneath that judgment that it has to be perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I
Mhm.
love that. And it's funny, and no surprise that you would mention the hashtag or the phrase that you like to use all the time, collaboration over competition,
Mhm.
which as you had mentioned when you had me on your show, that was one of the things that we really just hit it off on, and
Mhm.
amongst so many other things. But I love it, and so many times, we'll go to an event, or maybe you'll meet somebody over Zoom, whatever it might be, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, wow, you're doing something very similar to what I am," or "I'm a connector too," or all these different things they'll say, and I've recently had somebody say, "Oh, so you're my competition, right?" I'm like,
Mhm.
"No, actually,
Mhm.
you're a potential great collaborator, right?"
Yes.
Um, so do you mind expanding on that a little bit? Where did that come from? What kind of experiences did you have that really had you identify and resonate with the phrase collaboration over competition?
Yes. So you asked great questions, really have me thinking. But, I was raised as an only child. And with that upbringing, academics was very important in my family's household, So I was a high achiever, high performer. And a lot of my success was around, having these gifted classes and high marks in school. But for me, it really drove me to a very competitive type of mindset. And when I think of competition, I think it's scarcity, because I think there's only one winner. If somebody is winning, somebody else has to lose. There's only two options: either you're great or you're not good, And so I had to really unlearn a lot of those principles because right now they just don't serve me. And I've learned to expand my perspective to understand that, every hamburger that's in the world is not just made from McDonald's. There's Burger King, Rallies, Checkers. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so understanding that there is an abundance of people being unique in their own specialty, even though they may be doing some of the similar things, understanding that we're not going to be everything to everybody. I'm a coach, but for me to think that I'm going to serve the whole world by myself is crazy. I see that as a mom with 15 children. I can't be there for all my children all the time, every moment of the day. So, understanding that there's room for everybody has allowed me to collaborate and even have more of an impact because I don't feel like everything is on my shoulders. And it really eradicates a lot of that competitive mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the other areas that we really were talking in sync, right? Was kind
Hmm.
of how we have an abundance mindset, and
Hmm.
so I want to throw the question that you asked me back at you,
Okay.
which is, how do you exercise that abundance mindset? What kind of things do you do to ensure that you are thinking in abundance and not in a scarcity type of way?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is actually sharing connections. As you mentioned before, when I meet people, I really work to be attentive during the time that we connect to find out, what is it that people in my network are interested in? What lights them up? What are some things that they are working on? And getting those key things narrowed down so that I can connect them with people in my network that will continue to keep that momentum going. I believe that motivation is something that is temporary. I could wake up today, be motivated, and then go look out the window and it's raining, and that could start to deflate a lot of my motivation. But I love to be around people that fuel my fire, or, we can make a fire together because we have that energy. So that's the thing that I try to keep moving when I meet somebody, because I think that's what keeps you top of mind. You know, I want people to know who I am. So yeah, they could say, "Oh yeah, that's that lady with 15 kids," but I want them to have their own experience with me so that they know me personally, and we can continue to grow and nurture our relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things, as you can see, that we've got, highlighted as, something that is very significant in your life, right? I mean, so many
Hmm.
people, their children are their passion. I just have a dog,
Hmm.
but I have,
That's a
I'm
baby.
100%. Um,
Yes.
and there's a very intentional reason for that, is because I want to make sure that I give the absolute best life I can for my future children. And
Hmm.
I know that you, coming from being an only child and then deciding that you wanted to raise a large family, I
Hmm.
find that very interesting, because I came from a large family thinking the last thing I wanted was, a ton of siblings,
Yeah.
for all of them. But I also think it's really great, so
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, how understanding that you came from being a single child, like,
Hmm.
what was it about that made you say, okay, I want to have, you know, how would we phrase this right? Because I'm sure you didn't say I want to have 15 children
It's so
exactly,
true.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
I'm like, did I have that somewhere? I'm going back to, how you have your high school senior books, at least, I don't know, I'm telling my age, but we would have these senior books that had our senior like a whole bunch of like memories, a concert ticket, what gas was. It's kind of like a time capsule, but it was a book.
mhm.
And mine was that I was going to be married with 2 kids and a dog and a cat. So I'm like, this was my senior year. How did I end up with 15 children? But I think it matters if you have the right mate.
Mhm.
First of all, I don't think anybody is going to be having 15 kids with somebody they don't particularly love or care for. And it is a very interesting dynamic. For me, being an only child, my mom was an entrepreneur. And so she couldn't go on field trips. She never really went to class parties. And so I had this dynamic where I just hated when I would have those events and my mom couldn't go. And so that is something that really was an imprint in my life. And I thought, when I have children, I don't want that to be me. But I went to a very distinguished school for business, Indiana University. And so I met my husband there. And, I had these aspirations to have a career, and it was a competitive school. And I got my degree in marketing. But for me, it was a conflict between that life and being a mother to my children. And so I felt like I had to choose between the two. I felt like, there's no way that I can be in a corporate environment and have a family. And now at the time, still, I don't think I was thinking 15 children. We originally wanted 5, but, they just kept coming. It was a blessing. And I had 11 of them natural with no pain medicine. And the last
Wow.
2, I had to have a C-section because I was over 40, and then 2 of them are my stepchildren. But all these things were happening, with really just a blessing miraculously, I thought. And I just felt like I wanted to devote my attention to my children. And so that was a basis for a lot of my depression, I think, because I felt like I really wasn't making an impact. When I was in school, you get this immediate feedback, whether it's a project that you get returned back, or your grades at the end of a semester. You get this constant reassurance that you're on the right track. Whereas when you're a parent, you sometimes could be doing this for years before it's really making a difference, or you're feeling appreciated. So I think that was part of it too, is that, this long drawn out delayed gratification of understanding if I'm on the right track was really a challenge for me, because I really sought that outward validation. That's all I knew with my academic career. So really navigating through that was a challenge. But back to your question, because I know I'm like getting off thing, but
No, you're great.
but I think it was just about understanding that it was amazing to create children, and just see all of them have different personalities. They were healthy, and I think I also answered my own prayer as a kid. I remember praying every Christmas and birthday for a sibling. So be careful what you pray for.
Asked and answered, right?
Right.
And I totally agree with what you were saying about each one of them being such a blessing, because
Hmm.
so many people can't even have children. So
Yeah.
for you to have that, that alone, going back to the abundance question, the abundance thing, I imagine has contributed to that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I love that. I think that's really great. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, like, how do you manage to communicate so well, one, with all of your children and all the different things that you're doing in your business, and with other people. With me, you've been very responsive. You're
Hmm.
always there, and yeah, and so I think you do a tremendous job. The fact that you are doing it all, obviously not on your own. You have a family and people supporting you,
Hmm.
um, but it's very impressive. So, what kind of, what kind of things do you do that help you specifically with communication? Just be
Hmm.
such a great communicator.
Well, I just thank you for that compliment. That's amazing, because my kids will probably say, sometimes my mom doesn't listen. Does she even understand what I'm talking about? So I love that. But I think it is the people that you connect with, and understanding what they need and what you need, really having that clarity. Notifications and systems are something that I use to really support me in nurturing relationships. I think it's really important. We can't be all places at all times, but there's just certain things that you should have on your radar. We knew that we were going to have this event, so being responsive and understanding, whether it's documents that I need to get to you or pictures, just kind of having an open ear about some of those things, I think is important. And I think the more responsive you are, the more responsive others will be. We have so many things that come at us during the day, and I am a in the moment person. I believe that, there's no time like the present, because this next moment might be crazy. Okay, when we get off this call, my kids will be in the background waiting for some, emergency. So I have learned to make the best use of my time in the moment. And so, just as you mentioned before, I think the day it always, I'm reminded of that day that we met for the first time, because I was doing this project for the metaverse, and it was crazy. I had to do this green screen recording and be an avatar, or, all this crazy stuff that I didn't know anything about. But it was a great break in the day, because I was able to connect with you, and it was a breath of fresh air. It was like, okay, I know that this is challenging what I'm doing, but I'm still moving in the right direction. I met a great person. And so that gave me more fuel. And that's when I went and just did all those introductions, because, that really fueled me. So I think, really having that opportunity to be present, to be attentive and listen, because there's this thing about um taking time to do something right the first time, rather than doing it then have to go back and redo it and all this. Just do it right the first time. So just ask more questions and be more present, so you don't have to do things twice.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, so it's interesting, there's a place for doing things right the first time, but also without worrying about it being perfect, right?
Yeah.
Um which is, something that you mentioned before.
Hmm.
Um so yeah, that's really cool.
Hmm.
Um so you talk about, relationships, and I think that's largely, one of the reasons we hit it off so well is because that's something very important to us, right? Without
Hmm.
relationships, what really do you have in this life? And it seems like you do a great job at, maintaining your relationships and, communicating with people, and, and all of that. So I'm curious, aside from just being responsive and, living in that moment, what are some other ways that you like to focus on maintaining the relationships with the right people, right? Because
Hmm.
you want to make sure that you're, and when I say the right people, I'm not just talking business, right? So many people
Right.
will say that and they're like, oh, who's my customer? Oh, they become the right kind of people. I'm talking about
Hmm.
something different, which, to me, is all about what we call the unicorn DNA, which
Hmm.
I have super well defined, and kind of what the focus of our week this week, which is why we called today's show, Unicorns Look for Ways to Create Joy. Um,
Hmm.
that's kind of what it's more about to me when I talk about the right people, is the type of
Hmm.
person. And so we can
Hmm.
get back into the joy part of this, which I think we will. But I'm curious, like, what kind of things do you like to do to maintain your relationships and ensure that you are staying in communication with people that are the kind of people that you want to be, you know,
Hmm.
speaking with, talking to, having in your circle, right?
Yeah, I think this is a good question because for me, it's an evolution. It continues to evolve. And, sometimes just like you mentioned, oh, yeah, this is the person I want to be connected to. And, they're your ideal client, right? But understanding that there are so many different things that I need in my life in order for me to grow. So many people are like, oh my gosh, you got 15 kids, you could have a class on whatever related to motherhood. But I was an only child, so I'm learning through my kids, because I didn't know what it was like to share. I didn't know what it was like
Mm.
to have to divide your time with your parents and all this. So even meal prep, organization. I mean, I'm a work in progress. It's taken me, I don't know how long to clean my office where I'm able to see the floor on some areas because, it just is one of those things. If it's not really important right now, I can definitely overlook, some disorder to stay focused on what's really important. And so I say that as I grow and unlearn a lot of things that didn't serve me, I need people in my life that are, their skill set is high in some of these areas because they help me to get better. So I believe that everybody can be a good connector, but it is really understanding how you can pour into them and they can pour into you. And I think that's where communication is very important, to be able to ask the right questions and be present. If I'm on this broadcast now, but I'm checking my phone or, having a conversation with somebody behind the camera, I'm not going to be present. And just taking that time to be present and connect in real time is what's most important, because you can eliminate a lot of clarity issues if you just take the time to ask the questions when the person's in front of you. I love listening to Jim Rohn, and he says that if you're going to have a meeting, write down before you start the meeting what you're going to talk about. He says, if you say, now, what was I going to say? Let me see. He said, you don't look too bright, So anytime that you can document, that you can prep, do that ahead of time. And people understand, take an interest in what they're doing. You know, you mentioned that you have a dog. So if I have see some funny dog videos, then I know who I can share them with, who could appreciate it, right? So it's just being attentive to what people want to share with you, and then you can build from there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think it's so important to be present and really pay attention, right? And, you know,
Hmm.
while having an agenda and things that you want to talk about, I think it's also important to be flexible with that,
Yeah.
right? And going with the flow, right? It's not always
Hmm.
going to go in the way that you think. And
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you had a meeting with somebody where you're like, "Oh, okay, I want to talk about all these things," and you don't even ever get to them because, you know, for example, they have a dog and you're like, I love that. And you end up talking about dogs for a half hour. If you've ever been on a meeting with me, you know that we're going to talk about dogs for a portion of the time. Um, right.
So
I mean, it just happens and you got to be willing and, you know, flexible for that to be okay with that. Right.
yeah.
But also while like knowing how to get back on track if that's what needs to happen. Right.
So
So,
true. I mean, like I love, the last couple times that we have had our calls, we've had Brian play the ukulele. I mean, that really just, that just lit me up. You know how people say, oh, I do this and I do that. But for somebody to break it out and play it, I mean, to me, that is just like awesome. That really added a different element and helped me to see a different side of him. So just being present enough to be who you are, that really lights me up because I don't want people to feel like they have to have a mask on around me,
mhm.
and so I try to laugh at myself and do a lot of things to help other people feel comfortable because I live my life with a lot of masks on and I'm done with them. Okay.
Yeah, no, I totally hear what you're saying. And you know, I'm with you. I love it when Brian gets on and plays the ukulele. Like it's so special to me. And I
Hmm.
you know what? And he's a great singer too. Like
Yeah,
and
he
I'm not
does
just
good.
saying that. I
Yeah.
was very impressed. So, yeah. I have so much fun on those connection events. Um so you talk about, you know, we've talked about collaboration, communication, connections, all the C's, right?
Hmm.
There's something about C's. It's just a good letter. So I'm curious, you know, so we talk about unicorn connectors, right?
Hmm.
And I'm curious, like, what does that mean to you when you, I don't know, like when you first heard that or now, like, what do you think of when you think of a unicorn connector?
For me, I think it is I just think that it's really being able to hone in on what their zone of genius is, you know. Like I mentioned Brian playing the ukulele. Now, I know him about the bank thing, because
Mhm.
I have a connection who did the bank. But when you're able to see a little bit more into a person, then you can really um, have a deeper connection and you really feel compelled to help that person do better in whatever it is they're pursuing. And so, I think it's just that ability to be present and approachable, asking the right questions, because, someone being able to shine doesn't have to dim my light. We can both shine. And if we both shine, the light's going to be even brighter. So having that mentality, I think is important, but it's not trying to change anybody. It's really being able to accept them for where they are and finding out a little bit more about what that is. Because a lot of times people are afraid to I haven't been on very many Zoom calls where somebody's breaking out a ukulele and singing, but I credit that to the community making it a safe enough space for somebody to do that rather than just talk about something that they love doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why,
Mhm.
you know, one of the elements of the unicorn DNA is being accepting of others and,
Mm-hmm.
not being afraid to be yourself. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
so important because, when people are worried about what they can and can't say or do, you
Mm-hmm.
really can't be yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think going back to what you were saying before about just kind of being present and going with the flow, that's super important to me, right? And that's why,
Mm-hmm.
you don't see us not letting people in after a certain time or getting on their case about going over 90 seconds. If you've ever been on one of those events, if I were to try to cut people off at 90 seconds, it would be a very different event for sure,
Oh yeah. Like a
Sometimes
total
I'm like, how are we
master.
going to get
Yeah.
to everybody?
Well,
So,
and it's scary as some of the, I have never been a part of Toastmasters.
okay.
And 2 years ago, I was asked to do a keynote speech for it. And I just thought, okay, I'll go on here. But it was so intimidating because, I did a little research like a couple hours before, but just hearing their presentations, they count the ums and, they really critique you on that. But it's good to get stretched out of your comfort zone. But I think had I known all those things, I probably would have said, oh, I don't think so. Thank you for the invitation. But it was a great learning experience. But it does prepare you for having a conversation with anybody. But just knowing that they were going to critique me and the things that I had to do when it came to time, it worked out. Everything went well. I got they said great things about it. But like I said, if I had known that before, I probably would have been like, oh, no, I'm going to wait a little longer before I do something like that.
Yeah. And so when was that?
That was 2 years ago. It was actually
Okay.
on my 50th birthday.
Oh, nice.
They asked me to come and speak. And so, yeah, that was a great thing to get out of my comfort zone on my 50th birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And
Hmm.
so I've actually done a couple of speaker schools, and it's something that I am focused on, and, partially why, I'm doing podcasts now and want to get on stages and stuff like that. What kind of experiences do you have, either as a speaker or listening to other people's speeches that have helped you in some way or another, either as a connector or just in general? I'm curious to know about some of those experiences.
I have so many. I can't even, we wouldn't have enough time because for me as a podcaster, you're thinking, it's like that, you're thinking, oh, we're just going to have this interview. It's going to be 30 minutes, but you never really take into account what you're going to learn,
Mm,
because I look at every interview as what is this person going to teach me? And I am amazed at all the information that I learn through different people and their in my interactions and conversations with them. I think one of the things that I have enjoyed about speaking is I want to speak with people rather than at people. So I really like to share stories that I feel are relatable about my own experiences because I think that makes it more engaging and makes me more approachable. I don't want to be some person where they're like, oh my gosh, she doesn't even know what I go through as a mom or, as a single mom or any of these different things. I want to be in a place where people can see that I could give them some value, whether it's people that might be in my network or something that they can learn from me directly. And I think that ability to be approachable, because there's so many things that we have in common, but we get into these situations where things get really polarized and we focus on the things that we don't have in common. And so that builds a bigger wall and it makes it harder for us to get around and through some of those challenges because we created that wall ourselves rather than saying, hey, we both have dogs, right? That's something that we have in common. So it doesn't matter that you're white, that you're younger than me or whatever. It just, what can we start with that's our commonality and then build from there. I think we work too hard to focus on the differences, as opposed to focusing on what we have in common, and then taking that baby step and building organically.
I completely agree with you. And it's interesting because while finding things that you have in common is a great way to really just connect with people and build that relationship. Sometimes, we talk about dogs, right? Maybe it's,
Mhm.
even though I have a dog, something that I don't really care about. If you know me, that's not the case. But sometimes people can go on and on about something that they're like, oh yeah, I connect with you on this level, and maybe it's really not something that they're too passionate about.
Right.
So yeah, I find it interesting. It can definitely go both ways. um
No, that's true. But I think, you'll be able to learn from people's body. See, there we go with being present, because you'll be able to, most of the communication is nonverbal. So you will be able to see, but that comes from being present. If I'm on my phone and trying to have a conversation with you, and listening to music and a lot of these distractions, I'm going to miss some of those cues.
right, absolutely. So I wanted to kind of go back into the speaking engagements type of conversation. um how do you how do you make sure that you do relate to people to where you're not just talking at them? Because so many
Mhm.
times we'll go to an event, either, a virtual networking or an in-person networking event, and there are those people that just vomit all over you, and you're just being talked at, right? So I'm
Mhm.
curious, from your perspective, how do you make sure that you're, having a conversation with somebody versus just saying all the things that you want to say?
Mhm. Well, usually I use myself as an example, with everything. I don't have to worry about getting in trouble for somebody, me sharing a story. But I like to talk about a problem and then a solution. So, there's so many examples that I could use from my own life. I'm telling you, okay? I have written a book about it, literally. But it is really getting with the event coordinator and finding out what they want to know about. Because I feel like I could come up with 1,000 things to talk about, whether it is children issues, marriage issues, woman issues, aging. I mean, the list can go on and on, but I want to give value based on the audience. So, I think one of the things that I really enjoy about speaking, though, is using examples that transcends what people think that I'm going to be talking about. So I love talking about depression, but I like talking about it in a way of being an overcomer. I don't want to be bringing the room down, but I want to be able to educate people about the topic in a way that's inviting, to where they're curious, they want to learn more, and enough so that they want to prevent themselves from going through that. So I want it to be that kind of way. So it is making stories that can transcend different genders, ages, um, interests. So, for example, one of the things that I would say is, a lot of times when we think about how we are hard on ourselves, we can be so hard on ourselves that it's really crazy, right? You're afraid to ask somebody, for a virtual coffee or something. They're probably going to say no. You beat yourself up. But it's ridiculous the extremes that we go to. So I use this example of, if I'm driving my car and I have a flat tire, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to give my car away. I got a flat tire. I don't need to drive anymore. But that's the extreme that we go to when we beat ourselves up about certain things. It's like we do things that are just really logically don't make sense, to ourselves. It's not even anybody else. involved in that equation. And so giving people examples to demonstrate how silly we can be, but a lot of that is because our internal dialogue is not in check. And so we have to make sure that we keep that in check. And one of the ways is writing things down so you can see it on paper and realize how crazy it is. And then, get out of your own head and then get to having a realistic plan that's going to move you forward.
That is so important. And I really love this. And, that response to the question. And, to me, it sounds like a very helpful thing that you do and topic that you focus on, by helping people get out of their head and get out of that funk. And ultimately, to me, that's definitely one of the ways that you are helping create more joy and create joy in other people's lives. And, you know, the, and that was one of the reasons I really wanted to have you specifically on this week, is because I know just how positive you are and how important it is for you to do exactly that, help
Mhm.
people find more joy in their lives. Which brings me to, I wanted to mention, you have this acronym that you use,
Mhm.
SMILE, right?
Mhm.
Um, I'll let you talk about that. Tell us, what it stands for. And I love how appropriate you sent me your headshot with a mug with this yellow mug with this big bright smile on it. I just thought that was so perfect. So tell us about Smile, if you would. What does it stand
Yes.
for? Why did you come up with it? And then how are you helping people with that?
Yes. So thank you so much for that compliment, because that's great that that resonates with you. But SMILE was a acronym that I created during the pandemic. So a lot of times we heard how people were going to be affected with the pandemic, whether it was just the trauma or the social distancing, the emotional situation that a lot of people were forecasting. They believed that it was going to have some after effect. And so for me, overcoming my own journey with depression, I thought, why are we professing something we know is going to be a problem and not being proactive about it? And
Mhm.
so I came up with that acronym. One, because it's healthy for yourself to smile at yourself in the mirror, but it also is an acronym for 5 pillars that, as I did my own inner reflection, I found that these were areas that really were problems for me during my depression. I really did not have healthy situations with a lot of these elements. And so I think it's important for people to know how these 5 pillars are important. And you can really have a self check in with yourself, or it's easy markers to see in others. So the acronym is SMILE, and it's sleep, mood, inner voice, laughter, and energy. So each of those pillars are things that we need to be mindful of. How much sleep are you getting? You can look up what happens if you're sleep deprived. So as I went back and realized in my own journey during that 13 years that I probably got 4 hours of sleep a night. I was just used to running on empty. And so I was believing that I was refueling every day, but a lot of the thought processes I was having and just how I was maneuvering through life was a issue of sleep deprivation. Then your mood. Yes, we can have up and down moods, things happen, but if you have a mood over a course of weeks, something needs to be checked out with that. Your inner voice, how are you talking to yourself? A lot of my depression was not anything other people were saying to me. Matter of fact, I got a lot of compliments. My kids would do good in school. We would be at functions, and we would always exceed other people's expectations for us. But what I was saying to myself was louder than what people were saying to me. That at the end of the day, I didn't even hear what people were saying because I was too busy beating myself up. And then laughter is, how often are you laughing? You know, are you just so serious with no ability to have a sense of humor? That's a problem. And then the last thing is energy. So what I would do is think at the end of the day, after my kids are asleep, that I was just going to have my me time. And then I'd be asleep with a book in my lap or glasses on or something crazy, and my kids would get a good night's sleep. They're ready for the next day, and I'm running on empty, you know. And so really finding out what is it that I need to do to energize myself, whether it's eating better, getting more sleep, changing my priorities, taking my me time first before I even get my kids up and greet them, was one of the issues that really changed for me, is understanding that I need to fuel myself up and give my best to me so that I can give my best to others. So that is pretty much the smile in a nutshell. And it's easy to remember. And then the yellow mug is actually, I have a connection. Melanie Ake, she was on earlier. I don't know if she's still on, but she and I are business partners in a company. And so she did a post on Instagram with a yellow mug, just like the one I have. And it was so inspiring. And so I said, I just love that. So I am a thrifter. I went out thrifting the next day, found the mug, same as hers. And so that's how I got started. Did my own selfie in order for me to be a side by side picture with her, and posted as an Instagram reel. And from that, it's stuck. I mean, people love the picture. And so that's a selfie that I did based on a prompting from another business associate.
I love that. That's so funny.
Hmm.
I love that. And so you went out and you just found that, like it
Yeah.
wasn't some Amazon, find it, buy it, it's here
Didn't
tomorrow
I
type of
was at
situation.
Goodwill. Yes. I went to
Yes.
Goodwill and found that.
I
Yes.
love that. That's so great. That's so
Hmm.
great. You know, and I just wanted to kind of say, you know, how that resonated with me. Um the first one being the first two, or the first one and the last part of that
Hmm.
acronym, go hand in hand so much, of course, right?
Yes.
Because without the right sleep, you're not going to have the type of energy that you need to really be able to laugh and have the right mood. And ultimately, if all those things are not there and you're not in the right mindset, then your inner voice can start getting at
Yes.
you and affecting you in a negative way. So I just thought it was amazing. And, you know, for anybody out there listening, I'm sure plenty of people can resonate with those times where we just go and go and go and go. And
Hmm.
it's so easy to get burnt out, you know, no matter who you are, it can happen, right? And so
Yes.
making sure you get the right amount of sleep is so important, especially, you know, we talk about, you know, being a unicorn connector, right? A huge
Hmm.
part of it is meeting new people. If you're tired and you don't have the energy because you didn't get the right amount of sleep, it can make things not anywhere near as fun as if you did, if you are energized, right?
Hmm.
You know, how many times, like, you know, have you ever been to a networking event where maybe you didn't get a ton of sleep and you just weren't on your game, right?
Yeah.
And it can be such a drag. It can be totally ruin the entire experience, right?
So true. Well, you know, I think the biggest thing is the follow up. And
Yep.
if you're not energized, you're not going to do it. I mean, for me,
Yes.
that's my game changer, because you know, when I meet people, it's the follow up, it's the introductions in real time.
Yeah.
You know, because you have the energy, you get it done. No time like the present. Everything's fresh, you know, and so there is something with that energy that you're using that other people feed off of, you know. So when you're making an introduction, that's just like a golden ticket in your mailbox,
Hmm.
you know, because you never know who that person knows. And getting those to me are, you know, I love it when I receive them. So I know what that can do for the people that are being introduced. And, you know, it's so funny because I tell everybody that I connect, hey, I copy and paste my introductions, but the message is organic. So I create a message organically for that person, but it's copy and paste because, I send out a lot of introductions. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you just address that up front.
Hmm.
Um, because then you just know what to expect, right? And
Yeah.
that also comes, plays a part in the follow up, and just setting expectations is very important with all of that. How you're going to follow up, when you're going to follow up, why you're going to follow up, right? But and then
Hmm.
doing it, right? It's one thing to say it and then not actually do it. Um,
Yes.
and so that's a great tip that you give, is to have a template, or at least,
Yes.
or a copy paste, right? Know what your process is to follow up with people.
Yeah.
Are you going to follow up with them right after the event as you're sitting there in your car?
Right.
Sometimes that's a great way to do it, if you have the time, if you have the energy, right? Or maybe you do it
Mhm.
the next day. And if you can't, if you know going into it that, hey, I'm traveling tomorrow and then it's the weekend, I've spent a week away from family, I'm going to be spending time with them. Like, maybe you just let people know that, hey, it might not be a week. And if you message me, it might be a challenge for me to get back to you, but I will, don't forget
Right.
about me. Right.
Right. I love
So,
that. But I have learned. I was able to interview Dr. Ivan Meisner. He's the founder of BNI
okay.
networking
Yeah.
organization, and he says he follows the 24/7/30. So 24 hours you respond to somebody, 7 days, and then 30 days. And so if you just have it a part of your time frame. So like if I'm going to a networking event, if they let me off of the event early, then I'm still using that time in my calendar to do follow up, because you want to be able to complete everything in real time. So I was that person that would go to my car before I left the event. I would do follow ups, whether it's a voice message, a video message, or something in real time. And then I'm done with it. So it's like when I get home, I don't have to worry about any follow ups and everything. I can be present with being at home. And so I think, factoring in that time, even if you have connection calls, if the connection call is 30 minutes, make it an hour on your calendar so you can follow up and have that time to get it done in one time rather than trying to go back later on. Because I'll make notes and it's like, what was I even saying? A
Right.
week later, I'm like, I don't even know what I was talking about.
I I totally agree with you, and that's why, so I've been, when I meet people at in-person events, I always try to take a picture with them if I really
That's
want
good.
to make sure that, you know, it- you remember who they are. It sucks
Yeah.
to say, but sometimes you meet so many people, especially if it's like a few day event, it can be really challenging. The worst thing you can do is have somebody's phone number in your phone, and
You don't
that's
know.
it, right? And especially if
Yeah.
you text them and you send them your name, it's like, good luck.
But see,
So,
that's a great tip that you're saying, because when you take the picture with somebody, you can make that the profile pic.
yeah,
And if it's the profile pic, usually they'll answer your call. So, like if you're taking a picture, you send it to them or you say, hey, I want this to be my profile pic. Then, later on after that event, and you call, your picture and whatever is going to come up. And so you're not like some stranger, a random call that they don't know who you are, because a lot of people don't
absolutely.
answer those.
Absolutely. And that's such a valuable tip that I don't
Hmm.
always do. So many people don't do. But if you can manage to get your contact info saved in their phone, right?
Yeah.
Especially with a picture, you call them, they're going to answer, right? Oh, it's Daniel from the event that we were at last week. I'm going to answer that, right? Versus
Hmm.
a random phone number showing up in your in your calls, and that's for a phone call, right? So then you might text them or whatever, but still, it's just having it in their phone is it's game changing, right? So,
Well, and like that's another thing. I don't know if people have iPhones, but you can create your own card.
Hmm.
for your phone number. So all your websites or whatever you want people to have with your contact information is associated with your phone number. So the more thorough you are with filling that out, that's what comes up for people when you call.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I like to have two. So one that has like way more information than anybody would ever need or that I would want to share. Um, like addresses, passwords, all the things,
Yeah.
right? So create one that's for, business purposes, right? Where you can send it
Hmm.
to them and hey, this is the one I send to people when I meet them at an event, and send it. And if you got to take it and add it for them, some people want to move on, or it doesn't always go as planned, but I think that's so important and such a great way to do it. Top it off with a
Hmm.
picture together, and it just makes for a
Yeah.
good time. And I don't know if I've ever gone to take a selfie with somebody where they're like, "No, I don't want to do it." Honestly, like
Exactly.
people love
Yeah.
it, right? Plus,
Hmm.
then you have pictures with people and you can share it later on. You can tag people on social media and people
Yes.
love that, right? So many benefits to doing that.
So
So,
true.
yeah. So I think that's awesome. Are there any events that you particularly like going to, maybe in person or virtually, that you want to kind of shout out?
I love just any place that I can meet other people, and I think that's probably from me being an only child, loving to be around people. So yeah, I'm all for virtual, live, whatever. I think again, it's about being intentional.
Hmm.
If it's who do you want to connect with and why. Um, but I think, because one of my goals is to collaborate with Oprah Winfrey and Jimmy Fallon. I just feel like they have audiences that can benefit from mental wellness, talking
Yeah.
about strategies, right? So I think any event, you never know who knows anybody, you know. I
Right.
find some of the most unique points of interest with people that I would have never imagined,
Right.
um, because we all have a story, you know. People look at me as a mom of 15 children, but I grew up as an only child. So I did have a different life before I got to this place. So I think we forget that. We see people where they are, and it's like, oh, yeah, I used to be a waitress at a restaurant, or I worked in a nursing home. I could go on and on with some of the things that I have done in former life, that people would be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah. Um, you're totally right.
Hmm.
You really don't know who somebody knows, and that's why having an open mind with connecting is so important, because for one, you might just make a friend, and that's great.
Yeah,
You don't always need to be trying to meet with people to do business together, right?
right.
And that friend might know Winfrey, if I can say her name right, um, and or Jimmy Fallon, right? Which
Yeah.
you beat me to it, and I knew uh,
I
I
put
was
it out there.
planning.
Okay.
Well, that's what it's all about. So the couple last things I wanted to squeeze in there. One was asking, who is your golden connection, which
Yeah.
you've stated on some of our calls is Oprah Winfrey and or Jimmy Fallon, right?
Right.
So if you are
Well, it's
watching
both
this,
of them. It's both of them.
both of them
Yeah.
together. Okay. So we're
I could
talking
just see us. Wouldn't that be fun? The three of us.
absolutely.
Jimmy Fallon is just a nut. Okay.
He's
I just love him.
he
I don't
is
even watch his show. I'm not even up that late. I'm in the bed, but it's been a
well,
while since I've seen him. COVID just kind of threw me off with a lot of stuff, but I just love, what he'll do anything for a laugh.
oh yeah.
And it's just the point that he does that because he knows what it does for people. So he's willing to make himself look any kind of way to allow people to have fun. And that's what you need. You need laughter. So I love that about him.
Absolutely. I mean, that
Mhm.
guy's
I
a
don't know what he
unicorn
would have me
through and
doing,
through.
but I'm down for it.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said I don't know what he would have me doing, but I'm down for it.
I bet that would be an absolute blast. I would love to see that. So if anybody's watching this and knows Oprah Winfrey, or Jimmy Fallon, because if you know both, great. Let's get LaChelle connected with them. And I could see that being an absolutely positive experience, both, for everybody involved,
Yeah,
and such a great way to create more joy in the world, right?
so
So
true.
I love that. And I knew that.
Well,
And I was
and
going to
I
ask
think,
you, but you shared
yeah,
it.
but
So,
I think also, this is like we're back to this thing being full circle.
yeah.
So I know that he and his wife have a daughter. I believe they have a daughter. It's been a minute since I've looked it up, but now he's a parent. So he might be like, you know what? Hey, I need to talk to her because how do you do it? It's a totally different thing. You never know what value you can give to somebody else, based on their life and what's happening, and,
Right.
and Oprah could be like, hey, I don't know what she may see that I have value with, but I believe it's something.
Absolutely. And that going into the whole golden connection philosophy is that knowing how you can create that value for whoever is your golden connection is
Hmm.
super important, right? So
Hmm.
as for Jimmy, if you're listening, when you listen to this, just make sure you understand who you're talking to. LaChelle Adkins, she doesn't go by America's Supermom for no reason.
Oh,
15 children. She is a super parent, right? You have some things you could learn from her. So definitely connect with LaChelle.
I love that. I love
Let's make it happen.
I,
With
they say let other people speak for you. So I love that, Daniel. See, I mean,
and I don't know if Jimmy is on LinkedIn, but I
he
used to
is. He's on
okay.
Instagram, LinkedIn. Okay, so yeah, we
So
could tag him.
friends, please tag Jimmy Fallon in the comments. We used to do our on the Friday Unicorn Connection posts. It started out with this idea that if enough people tagged somebody influential enough, like Jimmy Fallon or Oprah
Mm,
Winfrey, then maybe they would see it and maybe they would respond. And it worked. So many people
okay.
connected with their golden connections that they did not think in a million years they would connect with.
You
Um,
know what? This is the week before my birthday, so anything is possible.
come on, come on. If you're
Yeah,
listening and you haven't tagged Jimmy Fallon, let's make it happen. Say,
this
Jimmy
is fun.
Fallon, don't you want to learn from America's Supermom?
I love that. I love that. This is
That would
fun.
be so
Look, I'm
great.
not going to be able to sleep tonight, Dan.
you know, and I really would like to bring that back. It got kind of interesting, the whole golden connection thing. So I
Yeah.
don't really do it in that way anymore. I kind of just rotate the questions and things like that. But
Hmm.
um maybe what we do is like once a month we do it in that format, right? And really give
Hmm.
people a lot of prep and generate a lot of buzz. Maybe it could be on a live event. Who knows?
Yeah.
But, as we grow, I think that leveraging the power of numbers can really make a significant difference, right?
So
So,
true. So true. Yeah. I mean,
so
because it's about the collective,
right,
and that's the thing that I say about collaborating.
yeah,
That goes so much further because you are multiplying rather than just adding, because you
right.
just think exponentially. If one person tags and then they tag, I mean, it's just like, we see what happened with COVID, right? So, hey, I'm telling
Yes,
you,
we
it
do.
happens quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that is, really the power of connections. We like to say that
Hmm.
when you can connect with the right person and collaborate with them in an effective manner, that connection, from yourself and another, that one
Yeah.
plus one can equal a billion, right?
So true.
So I totally agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm
So,
working it.
so
I'm so
LaChelle,
glad everybody is joining us. Thank you guys for joining.
yes, I wanted to. So, real quick, I know we're a
Okay.
little bit over.
Okay.
I hope this has been smooth on the live stream. My computer has been so buggy this whole time. It's been like choppy, but
Okay.
but
It's been
anyway,
fine for me, or either we're choppy together.
that's good. I think it's my computer. So I wanted to answer just a couple questions.
Okay.
So we've got Dr. Lulu, who had you on her show earlier today. She had asked if we are open to having other guests on. Absolutely. People that resonate with being a connector, people that resonate with any of the elements of the unicorn DNA, who are passionate about referrals, relationships, revenue, and really sharing in an abundant way. 100%. We are so open and would welcome you as a guest. So DM me, Daniel Knight, on LinkedIn. That'll be the best way to make that happen. So I got to check out your interview with her, or her interview with you, right?
Dr. Lulu. I don't know Dr. Lulu.
Oh, no. That was, I'm sorry. I'm getting my conversations mixed up. Now let's see if I can get the right
Look, you had me panicking because I'm thinking, you know.
Oh boy.
You think, oh my gosh, did I forget something? Did I miss something here? So
wrong conversation. I'm so sorry. No, it was Jenny Holder, who said she had Dr. Lulu on. I think she said it was
okay
for tomorrow. Sorry.
See how we're all connected. It's good.
Oh, it's amazing. Gotta have fun.
Hey,
right?
Nice to meet you, Dr. Lulu. Okay.
Yes. All right.
I'm going to follow up with that one pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh, that was funny. I'm like dying over here. Jennifer, thank you so much for your comment. I really appreciate that. And that's my goal. And I know LaChelle's goal is to provide value and help people in some way or another. Melanie Richards said, thank you for sharing your stories. And we've got Lisa Dunn. If my computer would catch up with me, she said she'd love to go day drinking with Jimmy.
Yeah.
Say, yeah, that would be a riot.
I'm telling you, we'd have to have somebody following us around just to see what he would be up to.
Yeah, that would be something else. Yeah,
so true.
Well, let's see. So, LaChelle, I wanted to, wrap this up. You are so amazing. I can't thank you enough for being on your show. What do you have coming up? Anything special that you wanted to talk about? Christmas is right around the corner. Ways to connect with people.
Yes. Well, one, I want to highlight my book. Okay. Do you want to be whole? 7 Steps to Living Mass Free. This is a guided journal, and it's also a soundtrack included with 2 of my children. They have some music that they included in the book, and it's like a guided journal. It talks about these 7 steps. I share a little bit about my experience, but then I ask questions for the reader to get their own transformation. So whoever purchases the book, every month I do a masterclass talking about why I wrote it, what things I would like for them to get out of it. So that is what I have now. Then I also have a Christmas meet and greet that is going to be taking place this Sunday. You can register through LinkedIn, or there's a Zoom link that we were talking about before that is super long because I just don't do those shortened link things. But I would love to have you. It's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is for small business owners. You see my decorations. They've been up since July because I've been doing this campaign. It started with Christmas in July, and every month I did a meet and greet related to a different theme for the holidays to get small businesses ready on how they can show up with their clients, creative ways that they could send out gifts on a budget. And so it's been a recurring theme ever since July. So it's going to be concluding on the 11th. And the theme for this one is ornaments. So we come up with creative gifts that you could give, related to the theme. We have guest speakers. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And it's on Zoom. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and if people want to register for that, I could put the Zoom link in the comments later
Okay.
on. And
Okay.
then also just connect with you on LinkedIn, or they can
Yes.
send me a message, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
So Christmas meet and greet, that's December 11th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Yes.
Um, and then LaChelle, we had somebody ask, will you show the book again? The
Oh,
name of the book?
sure. And it's got that yellow mug on there, y'all. Can you believe that's a selfie? That's another thing. See, if you're thinking about perfection, people think about getting a photo shoot and all this different stuff, but that was actually a selfie that I took.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so just to get out there and do it. Do it afraid. That's what I say.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, done is better than perfect, right?
Yes.
So at,
Yeah.
at least you get it completed. So I love that.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
right. So yeah, so all right, and then I put the name of the book in the
Okay.
on the thing. I don't know what that. Oh, it's called a banner on
Yeah.
things. So there's that. Anything else, LaChelle? How can people connect with you? What's the best way? And anything else you wanted to mention?
Well, first, I just want to thank you so much for having me. I have had so much fun. This has really been a great, great conversation. And, I learn with every conversation. So I'll be watching this replay and taking some notes. I love taking notes. That's just, I don't know. You just can do some things in real time when you're taking notes. But you can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm really everywhere on every
Yes.
social media platform. I do have a Twitter account, but I'm definitely not active on Twitter. I have a YouTube channel, podcast. All these things are related to mental wellness because what I have found on my journey as a coach, which I initially started after my last hospitalization, was that there needs to be more education rather than, of course, we need people that can help through depression and therapists. And I'm not saying that they're not important, but if we can work on the other end of educating to prevent some of these situations, that's just something that I have definitely seen that there's a gap there. So I provide content everywhere that I can, from speaking to social media and through a lot of these channels on my own. So I believe it's just an important topic. And I've learned that if no one will give you your own audience, then you create one and you start talking about it, and you let that movement continue to grow. So that is how you can find me.
Awesome. All right. Well, that sounds great. So you guys heard it from America's Supermom, LaChelle Adkins. LaChelle, thank you so much for being here. And everybody for watching, thank you so much for watching. Be sure, if you didn't already scan the one of the 3 QR codes I stuck in this image, be sure
Mhm.
to subscribe to the podcasts that we've got on all major platforms. The Unicorn Connector Show, where we're going to talk about people, relationships, revenue, and referrals, and ways that you can maximize your life and live in a life of more joy by being a connector. So, thank you again, LaChelle. Seriously, so great to have you. And I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you for having me, and happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays.